Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Sarah, I want to thank Sarah a lot for this initiative. I think it's a great one, and I'm very happy of everything I've been listening this morning. And I won't take too long because I know we're running short on time and it's after lunch and probably everyone is a bit tired. And I have a PowerPoint presentation, but a short one, just with some guides of what I'm gonna talk about the book. It will be brief. Let me just try to share this one. Can you see the?
Can you see?
Hello? Can you see the presentation?
We can see.
Okay, great, thank you. So again, I would like to start thanking Sahara for giving me this space. It's the first time I'm presenting about Somali women to Somali women, so I don't want to sound very redundant because you already know what it means to be a Somali woman. So I'm just going to talk a bit how I got into this topic and how this book came to be. As you can hear by my accent, English is not my first language. I'm originally from Spain. And I arrived in Kenya, in Nairobi in 2007, and I lived there until 2010. I was a lecturer of Spanish at USIU. And then I had the privilege to meet Professor Fatuma Ahmed Ali, who spoke this morning, and she's the one to blame for my interest in Somalis, because she had just came back from Spain, and we became very close friends. He said she was an inspiration for Somali women, but I will say she's an inspiration for other women as well. So Fatuma, she really welcomed me as I was part of her family, and she took me to Isili, she took me to Isiolo, and I was fascinated by all the people I was meeting and everything that I was seeing. I was very young at that time. I was like 26, and I was coming with my Western mind, and for me it was a great positive surprise getting to know Somali culture and Somali lifestyle. So I then decide, okay, I want to know more about this, and I want to do my PhD on Somali women, anthropology, ethnography, and that's what I did when I came to South Africa, where I'm now based at Wits in Johannesburg at the University of Witwatersrand. I come from a background of language and literature, so I was really moving out of my comfort zone, but I think it was really worth it. So for me, the main thing, you know how Somalis or Somalia is normally portrayed in the global imagination. And for me, that image was very wrong based on my experiences I was having there in Nairobi. And I thought it was very important to change perceptions about Somalis and especially about Somali women. So that's why my PhD was based on that, on Somali women in Nairobi and Johannesburg. And then that became the book. Here is the cover. It's published by Bergham Books. Unfortunately, just in hard copy, so it's quite expensive, but there is also an online version just for $20 that you can download from the website. I'll put the website at the end. So for me, this has been a whole project of 12 years in total since I started the PhD until the book was published this year. And as Sarah mentioned, we launched it in Cologne at the African Studies Conference, and people really like what they hear. So I'm very glad to contribute to show another image of Somali and especially Somali women. So, you already know that. So that's how Somalia is perceived in the global imagination. So when people hear about Somalia, they always think about tribalism, armed conflict, religious extremism, Al-Shabaab, the pirates of the Indian Ocean, hunger, refugee camps. And I think there's a complete victimization of refugees and women, yes, especially Somali women. And I mean, I'm not going to deny that part of this reality exists, but it's not the only reality. You know, there's also quoting Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, the Nigerian writer. She talks about the problem of the single, you know, the single history, when there's only an history from one perception. And that's what I was feeling, you know, like there was not justice being made about all the richness of Somali people and Somali culture. And this is normally the image, you know, you associate with Somalia. Meanwhile, you know, since I started my research, I found a very different scenario. Yes, like, so I was very fascinated how the diaspora, the Somali diaspora, is a global one that is all around the world. Yes, you can find Somalis in everywhere. I mean, you know, like in Minneapolis, in London, yes, and all these enclaves are connected. So I like to use this concept. It's actually from Cindy Horst's Transnational Nomads, and how I really see Somalia as a culture of migration. Like the importance of migrating and traveling and moving is very present in the Somali culture. And I think in the traditional times, it was the pastoralist way of life, but now it has gone to a transnational one. And I think that's very important for Somali culture and how Somali identity is constructed, because even if Somalis, so you are spread all around the world, you still keep very strong links with one another. And I think that's very peculiar, I will say. Not all communities operate like that. And then, I mean, the concept of buffets that also came a lot in my research, I also found fascinating, this need of keep moving, you know, like if not, you will feel depressed or you will feel down. And so that's why I wanted to focus, you know, like my approach to Somali women from different perspective. You know, it's not like this poor woman. No, it's a woman who I'll talk more about down the line, you know, but it's a woman who can be empowered. So that's why it was so nice to hear all of you this morning, accessing education and using your own voices to talk about things relevant for you and for everyone else. So, I mean, you also are aware of the role of the diaspora reconstructing the country. That's not my research topic, so I wouldn't talk much about that. But I mean, I came across all these investments and connections, you know, like keep the Somali economy all around the world. I think it's also very important for the Somali collective identity, the role of new technologies like social media. You know, like how someone in Minneapolis can know what happens here in Mayfair and Johannesburg 5 minutes later. Yes, and how it's also creating like a reconstruction of the nation in social media with different kind of posts. Yes, like it's a narrative going on there that maybe that doesn't exist as much in the no virtual world. So I also found that very, very interesting. And then I was also interested in looking at what the people call little Mogadishus, especially Sili in Nairobi and Mayfair here in Johannesburg. And I'm focusing on urban and what I call cosmopolitan refugees, trying to move on of this refugee in the camp that is unable to provide for them or their families, and all that kind of narrative that I think is just like a victimization from the West of the way looking at the others, especially Africans, and in this case, Somali. So what I observe is like people will work, they will send money home, they will create associations, support each other, and they were very active. And for me, Somalis are the best businessmen or women in the world. So I think that reality cannot be ignored. And the importance of this translocal, what I call translocal identity. So even if everyone comes from Somalia and it's spread all around the world, there is still, you know, like these connections that, I mean, and like being Somali is almost like a trademark. Yes, like it may assimilate things from the new culture, but I feel Somalis, you always carry your culture with you and your religion wherever you go. So again, when it's with regard to women, so it's always these stereotypes I think Fatuma and some other speakers have been talking about this along the day. But I think there is this tendency to look at Somali women as victims, like Black, Muslim, uneducated, without power or decision making, like very passive subjects that do nothing. And I found the reality is very different. So that's what is great to see these initiatives like the Somali Gender Hub happening and having this annual conference to keep for the record what Somali women are able to do. And I also found, for me, Somali women are the most resilient women on earth, and I really admire that. When I was doing interviews here in Johannesburg, there were very young women. Sometimes I was talking to like 20, in the early 20s. I was like, tell me about your life. And they say, no, I have a normal life. I'm just a mother and this and that. I said, well, you have crossed half of the continent. I mean, like, and you're still here and you're still smiling. Like, I mean, they wouldn't value that as valuable, their stories, but I think they really are. And I think it's very important to give voice to those stories of resilience and starting to see more women as warriors and not as much as victims. And I also found women migrating on their own with the support of the whole family or clan. But I mean, it was them who were going from one country to another. They will become economically independent as well in Nairobi and Johannesburg, so supporting the family back in Somalia. And there was also some empowerment. So they had decision making, or they have decision making. I also found in both places, women are starting to access the Quran by themselves. So they are interpreting the verse on their own without anyone telling them this or that. So that's also having I think, an impact on the way women think and take decisions, and especially the way they navigate the cultural and religious practices in diasporic spaces. So, I mean, those are aspects I explore in the book. I won't go in detail here again because it feels a bit redundant to talk to Somali women about Somali cultural practices. And actually, this book for me, I was also written in a sense for a Western audience to try to show them it's another reality. Yes, don't believe what you see in the news or this or that. You know, like there is a whole different scenario happening. And then another constant that I found, I mean, and this is linked to the concept of buffies that is being mentioned today as well, is this constant desire of a better life, of improving your life and the one of the families and people close to you. And that was a very important engine for migration and this constant sense of improvement. But then it's interesting, I did a small also field work in Minneapolis in the US, and I talked to some of the women I have met here in Mayfair in Johannesburg, and they have reached their dream destination, that is the US, but then they were not happy there. They want to keep moving, you know, they wanted to get their papers and then come back to Africa or go to another destination. So I found this search of a better life like goes on forever, you know, but it's like a way of motivating and also empower women and have their independence and all these things. Here I have a couple of quotes that I got from interviews. I leave there for you to read, but it's like the emphasizing how the Somali community survives because of the women. I mean, I will actually read because it's a nice one. Because women were taking care of all aspects of life and the men were busy with the war. The men in Somalia were controlling because they had the money. But life is changing now. The economy is controlling, not the man. Before, women didn't have anything. After the war, the men don't work. They are confused and they don't know what to do, where to start. But all the women are working. The women know how to take care of their husband and their children. Men have become a hassle. Somali survives because of women. If not, they have long disappeared. So I found this quote from an interview this was a businesswoman in Nairobi, very revealing in the sense like how things are changing in Somali society. And other women even declare how women have become the survival kit of the Somali society. Yes, so I think some acknowledgement should be done to that, and especially in these times we are living. And yes, this is just like a very general. I don't know if then you have questions or comments, or you want me to talk about a particular aspect of the book. I just want to add that the photos you have seen here is from this book. This is a free ebook. Yeah, you can find it online. Let me move this. Here is the address, and this is actually about Mayfair, a journey through Joburg, Lit, and Mogadishu metropolitan nomads. So this was a collaborative project with a photographer to try and document the life of the neighborhood here and saw a different image. You know, like in South Africa, there's huge problem they have here with xenophobia. So from time to time, there are these xenophobic attacks, and Somalis, of course, they are target. And this was an attempt to try and portray another image of what is the everyday life in the Somali neighborhood here. So this is a previous book that is available for free online. And this is the book I've been presenting today again. And here you have my email if you want to reach me, my website, and that's the website for the book. So thank you very much, and I'll be glad to hear comments or questions from the audience. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nereida. Very, very interesting research you've conducted. I'm also online here, so
okay.
I'm just the meeting online. I was trying to see how it looks when you are both physically there and also online.
Okay.
Really, we thank you very much, Nereida. Of course, I had the privilege to read your book and to comment on it in Cologne, and I in the interest of time, because we were actually supposed to end the session right now, just about right now, and I can see people are leaving one by one. So because of the fact that we don't have time, we're going to go straight on to our last three speakers. Okay, our last three speakers, and I'm going to give them a few minutes. Please, if you have questions for Nereida, she's on Twitter, she's on social media, you can Google her about her book, about her research. If you're interested in the other second panel speakers and reaching out to them, I can share their contacts.